In the year when I loved Blake the most, I was run over by his first love and became a vegetable. And my 5-year-old son, in the intensive care unit, personally pulled out my oxygen mask just to please his new mother. When I opened my eyes again, I went back to a week before the car accident. Having experienced life and death, in this life I am no longer obsessed. I took the initiative to propose a divorce and left with nothing. Arya, is this another one of your playing hard to get tricks? Blake, this time I really want a divorce. What about the child? Are you willing to give him up? I smiled. It's not that I don't want them, but that they pushed me away. They even went so far as to take my life. You will soon give him a new mother, won't you? Blake, I don't want you or the child anymore. From now on, I will never disturb your life again. After saying these words, I resolutely signed my name on the divorce agreement and then handed it to Blake. Blake looked at the divorce agreement I had prepared long ago with a sullen face. You have always known about Stella's existence. If you must make me choose between you and Stella, I advise you not to look for trouble. I ignored his outburst. I have entrusted everything that follows to my lawyer. If you have any questions, you can find him. I gave up property division because when I came to Blake's house, I had nothing. I also chose to give up custody of Carter. He can have a better living environment with Blake than being with me and living a vagrant life. Moreover, the child doesn't like me either. Arya, don't be so rinsing and keep mentioning divorce. We are all adults. I will not blindly indulge your unreasonable tantrums. I don't want to argue with him, and you can never wake up a person who pretends to be asleep. He can care about Stella and care about Stella's emotions. For me, he just endures my unreasonable tantrums. Blake, I just don't want to live like this anymore, so I choose to let go and fulfill you and Stella. Seeing my resolute expression, a hint of gloom flashed across Blake's eyes. The moment I was about to walk out of his office, I heard the sound of him signing with a pen. Wait. I stopped. I saw his secretary smiling politely and handing over the agreement he had signed. Along with the agreement was a bank card. Take this money. Just remember that since you have chosen divorce, there is no turning back. Blake still doesn't understand that I never thought of turning back. I didn't want to accept his card, but I knew that he never liked others to refuse him. This would only make him think that I proposed divorce to gain more benefits by retreating. Not wanting to get entangled with him anymore, I accepted the card. At this moment, Blake's face finally looked better. That expression seemed to say, look, this woman still wants to use divorce to gain more benefits. Turning around, I left his office. I was thinking about how to deal with this card. As the elevator reached the first floor, as soon as the door opened, I saw Stella. Blake's first love. The person she was holding by the hand was none other than my son Carter. The affectionate way they looked made them seem more like a mother and son. Memories of the scene before my rebirth emerged in my mind. In the hospital corridor filled with the smell of disinfectant, Stella was holding Carter and didn't know what she said to him. Later, he was in my intensive care unit and reached out and took off my oxygen mask. I know that a 5-year-old child doesn't understand the consequences of doing this at all. He just wants to please Stella. Thinking about it now, I still can't help feeling a chill and hope. He and Blake really have the same genes. Blake has never let go of Stella in his heart, and Carter only wants Stella to be his mother. But obviously, I am his mother. When I was pregnant with Carter, I was tortured by morning sickness for 7 months. Until a few days before giving birth to him, I was still throwing up bile. My bloated body made it hard for me to eat and sleep. He was very troublesome in my belly since he was little, but I still love him, being cautious and looking forward to his birth with all my heart. Later, Carter was born, but Blake's attitude didn't soften towards me because of the birth of his son. In his eyes, it was because of my appearance that his relationship with Stella was broken up. So he always unsparingly expressed his disgust and estrangement towards me. At first, I didn't understand why he was like this to me. Since he didn't love me, why did he marry me according to his family's arrangement? I thought my marriage could only wither in silence like this. I even default that probably my husband is just such a character. Silent, bland, and indifferent. It wasn't until Stella appeared that I understood that Blake is not incapable of smiling, he just doesn't smile at me. Blake is not ungentle, he just doesn't want to be gentle to me. Blake is not incapable of loving. He just doesn't love me. I don't know if they will quickly get married and form a happy new family after I die. After all, without me in the way, they can do whatever they want. But none of this matters to me anymore. Only by cutting off, giving up, and leaving can I live my own life well. At first, Carter was a little surprised to see me. The little hand held by Stella was obviously a little awkward. Stella obviously didn't expect to meet me here. Looking at me, her eyes were filled with the mockery of a victor. Arya, are you here to pick up Carter? He has always wanted to go to Blake's horse ranch. Coincidentally, I have nothing to do today, so I took him to ride a horse. Blake likes horses, but I have never been to his horse ranch. Stella is showing off to me. Even though she has already sounded the horn of taking love, I still don't take the bait. Only those who are loved have the capital to clamor. Those who are not loved, no matter how aggrieved and crying they are just clowns. I don't want to be a clown. Carter, let's talk. I smiled at Carter, polite and with a hint of distance, different from usual. Stella saw that I directly ignored her and was a little embarrassed. But in public and in Blake's family, she couldn't lose her temper. I took Carter to a dessert shop near the company and ordered ice cream and desserts that he likes. In the past, I never let him eat these. Carter has had a weak spleen and stomach since he was born, and his growth and development was not as good as children of the same age when he was little. So I am extremely careful about his diet. My physical foundation is not good. Coupled with the depression in my heart due to my relationship with Blake, I am deficient in both chi and blood and have insufficient breast milk. For breastfeeding, I always pump milk when he is asleep. After finally saving enough for one meal for him and wanting to close my eyes and rest for a while, he wakes up again. In Carter's growth, I did everything myself and did my best. Tired but happy, because he is my baby. He is the only person connected to me by blood in this world. But I didn't expect that he doesn't love me. He hates me. I don't want to eat these. I just want to eat candy, French fries, and Coke. I don't want to sleep. You always make me take a nap. I hate these. Can't you understand what I say? I can throw away my toys or play with them whenever I want. I just don't want to put them away. I don't want you to control me. He increasingly hates my control over him. The rift between us is also getting bigger and bigger. Until one day, Carter came back with Blake and was extremely happy. When I saw that he was sweating all over and just wanted to give him a bath, he pointed at my nose and told me, I don't want you to control me anymore in the future. I like Aunt Stella. She will play with me and eat delicious food with me. She is the one who really loves me. At that moment, I realized that my heart was like being torn open by someone. Even breathing hurt. Carter looked at these things in front of him that I wouldn't let him eat freely before. He was a little puzzled. But I just calmly told him, I won't control you anymore in the future. If you like Aunt Stella and want to play with her, I won't stop you. You always said before that you don't want me to be your mother anymore. I promise you, I won't be your mother anymore. Carter didn't expect me to say these things to him and was stunned for a while. There was a table full of delicious food. He was even at a loss and didn't dare to start. From now on, you can do whatever you want. As long as you are happy. But out of responsibility, I still want to tell you that when you grow up, you should be more sensible. Do your own things by yourself. You are a boy and you should have a sense of responsibility and courage. In the future, Uncle Butler will pick you up after school. Remember to hold his hand tightly and don't run around anymore. Carter widened his eyes and didn't understand what I meant, but it didn't matter anymore. I'm leaving. You help me give this bank card to your father. From now on, I won't annoy you anymore. And you don't come to disturb my life either. Will you not live with us anymore? Carter asked. I wanted to reach out and touch his head, but I still held back. After all, before being reborn, it was he who took my life. The fate between some people is pitifully shallow. Even if they are mother and son, they are destined to be separated. No, Carter. From now on, let's not see each other anymore. After saying that, I sent him back to Blake's family and handed him to Stella. Then I left without looking back. Once I decided to leave, I was like putting on wings to fly. Leaving Blake's house, leaving Jiangcheng, and staying away from all the hustle and bustle and entanglements. I returned to my hometown, Liangzhou. Liangzhou is not far from Jiangcheng. It only takes 1 hour by bullet train, but there is no one at home anymore. Only an old house is left. I lost my parents since I was young and grew up in an orphanage. My father was a policeman in the serious crime team of Jiangcheng. The case he was responsible for solving was to capture the murderer who kidnapped Blake's father back then. But during the execution of the mission, my father was shot through the lung by the murderer and died on the way to the hospital. My mother couldn't bear this blow and fell ill and was hospitalized. She died of a heart attack a week later. At the age of 15, Blake's elders found me to repay the kindness and took me back to Blake's house. The people in Blake's family are very kind to me. They let me receive a good education and give me a carefree and luxurious life. People in the circle always say that I will be the young mistress of Blake's family in the future. At first, I didn't care about these words. Until that year's mid-autumn family banquet at Blake's house, I saw Blake, who was 3 years older than me. A graceful young man stands in the wind. Among my peers, you are the most outstanding one. I fell in love with him at first sight. Blake was also very kind to me at first. Because my parents died, I suspended school for a period of time. He would patiently tutor me in my studies. When I was laughed at as a stray dog without parents at school, he would always stand up and teach those dandies a lesson. My affection for him grew deeper and deeper. But at that time, I didn't know that his kindness was just the kindness of an older brother to a younger sister, the kindness of relatives. Until on my 18th birthday, Blake, who was originally fine, suddenly flew into a rage after a long talk with my uncle in the study. I still remember that he rushed down the stairs and bumped into me head-on. His bloodshot eyes tightly grasped me, like a wounded wolf, hostile to the hunter holding a gun. He left Blake's house in a fit of anger. It was pouring rain outside. I was worried about him, so I followed him out. I vaguely remember that the car sped all the way along the mountain road. Several times I was so scared that I thought we were going to fall off the cliff. Only at the last second before almost derailing did he pull back. He asked me, "Arya, do you really want to become the young mistress of Blake's family and become my wife?" His eyes were cold and bloodshot. I didn't understand what he was saying, but I was worried about him. So I reached out and grabbed his palm to calm him down. He probably thought that my action was an affirmative attitude. In the next second, his eyes dimmed. "Then I will fulfill you." He forcibly pressed my head and pressed me in the passenger seat. His violent and rough kiss tore and swept me. At that moment, I was lost. But at that time, I clearly felt the sadness between his lips when he kissed me. Later, I learned that on that night, that once graceful young man completely broke off with the girl he deeply loved. Now thinking about it, in fact, I also have something wrong in our marriage to this point. I let all this happen and so I reaped the consequences. I can't keep making mistakes. If I can't hold on to a man, I have to learn to let go. I cleaned up the old house and simply decorated it. It was quite warm. There are still photos of my parents in the room. Looking at their photos, my heart won't feel empty. I'm home. At least, they have been waiting for me all these years. In this small town in the south of the Yangtze River, the pace of life is much slower than in Jiangcheng. I studied medicine when I was in school and had excellent grades. If I hadn't married Blake, I could have entered a good third-class hospital in Jiangcheng. Therefore, with my educational background, I smoothly became a surgeon at a secondary hospital in the town. Although I am an off-staff employee, I quite like this job. At least it is more valuable than doing nothing at home. The hospital has an opportunity for academic exchanges. The dean thinks I can be cultivated, so he recommended me to go to Jiangcheng People's Hospital for exchanges. When I first heard about Jiangcheng, I instinctively wanted to refuse. But due to the dean's earnest persuasion, I still accepted. I told myself that if I have let go in my heart, I will not be restrained anywhere. But if I still care in my heart, even if I don't go to Jiangcheng, I will still be trapped by my own making. It's just that I didn't expect to meet them again as soon as I returned to Jiangcheng. Blake and Carter. I saw them in the preventive immunization department of Jiangcheng People's Hospital. There is a friend of mine from the same period when I was in school, Dylan. I told myself that if I have let go in my heart, I will not be restrained anywhere. But if I still care in my heart, Arya, wait for me first. After I give the injection to the child inside, we can talk. It's okay. You go ahead and be busy. Dylan was wearing a mask. He didn't expect that I really became a doctor again. He was both happy for me and felt a bit pity. With my strength back then, I could have gone abroad for further studies. Unexpectedly, I got married and had a child so early. In the corner of Dylan's office, there is a dog cage with a dirty little puppy inside. It is white in color. Judging by the breed, it is a Chinese rural dog. I squatted down with interest to look at it. It is small and curled up on one side. Its body is still shivering, as if frightened. It should be an abandoned puppy. At that moment, I actually felt that it was very much like me when I first saw Blake. Pitiful and helpless. Uncle, be gentle when you give me the injection. It's all because of that stupid dog. I will ask my dad to send it to the city management to lock it up and beat it to death. The childish voice was full of resentment, accusing this poor little thing of its crime. But the child's cold and hateful words didn't sound like a child's innocence at all. When I heard the voice, my heart suddenly skipped a beat. Why does this voice sound so much like Carter's? Just when I was wondering, Blake walked in from outside. He obviously didn't expect to see me in the hospital. Little friend, you can't take a bath today when you go back. The place where you got the injection is a little painful. Don't touch it. I know. When my dad comes, I must ask him to punish this little stupid dog properly. While shouting, he raised his foot and kicked the dog cage hard. The little puppy was already cowering. Carter's big commotion scared it so much that it tucked its tail and yelped. I couldn't help feeling pity for it. Such a little thing. If humans didn't provoke and bully it, it definitely wouldn't be the first to bite. Carter also didn't expect to meet me here. He was stunned all of a sudden. Looking at me, there was a hint of pity in his eyes. He was bitten by a dog and instinctively wanted comfort. The words that Stella said to him came to his mind, and he reached out and wanted to throw himself at me. Carter, after Aunt marries your dad, shall we have a little brother? You will love your little brother and be willing to give all your delicious food and fun things to your little brother, right? He doesn't want any little brother. Why should he give his things to others? Carter suddenly found that Aunt Stella didn't spoil and protect him as much as before, and didn't pay as much attention to him as before. The little prince who thinks he is the center of everything suddenly felt that he was no longer so popular. He immediately felt extremely wronged. He began to recall his mother's kindness. Mom, Carter's shout with a hint of crying threw himself at me. After all, he is only a 5-year-old child. What can a child in kindergarten understand? But it was as if I couldn't hear his shout. I pushed him away and looked at the little dog trembling in the cage. Dylan. I called. Because I called Dylan, Blake couldn't help frowning. He examined me as if guessing the relationship between me and Dylan. But I completely ignored him. What's wrong? Dylan didn't notice the abnormal atmosphere and came closer to me. You can adopt this dog if you want. It's an unwanted stray dog, but it needs to be vaccinated. After hearing this, I smiled. From now on, it will have someone who wants it. When Carter heard my words, he was completely heartbroken. Mom, how can you want this dirty stupid dog? It bit me. I won't allow you to keep it. Didn't Mom love him the most before? Now she would rather have a dog than him? I ignored Carter. I squatted down, opened the cage, and carefully held the dog in my arms. Turning around, I looked at the child below me with indifferent and distant eyes. I am no longer your mother. From now on, I will live with it. Looking up again, I looked at Blake. Mr. Blake, I will bear the medical expenses for the vaccination. As for this dog, I want to keep it and will be responsible for it. In the consulting room, Carter's heartbroken crying rang out. Dad, Mom would rather keep a stray dog than me. But I don't care at all. I took the puppy out of the cage. Strangely, the puppy was not afraid of me at all. Instead, it seemed to see a life-saving straw and quickly burrowed into my arms. I actually had a feeling of empathy with it. I stood still in front of Carter and looked at him with cold and distant eyes. At least the puppy won't think of taking my life. Unlike you. I named the puppy Adiu. Adiu is very cute and clingy. As long as I come home from work, it always follows me closely. Because it doesn't have a sense of security and is afraid that I will abandon it too. Adiu, I won't abandon you. We will live together forever. As soon as I get home, I always hold it and play with it. In this way, I let it understand that from now on, no one will abandon it anymore. Now, I am not alone. I have Adiu. It loves me. I didn't expect Blake to find Liangzhou. In the evening, when I went downstairs to throw out the trash, I saw his car parked downstairs. When Adiu saw Carter getting out of the car too, it barked wildly. This little boy kicked it in the hospital. Adiu, don't be afraid. I hugged it tightly and stroked it with my hand. The little guy kept burrowing into my arms, but its vigilant eyes still looked at Carter. I wanted to ignore them, but seeing Blake find this place, I was angry. Why didn't you accept the money? That sum of money could clearly make you live better after divorce. Also, I transferred an apartment in the city center to your name. If I had known you were going back to Liangzhou, I could also buy you a house here. I will give the order now. Which area do you like? He is so strange. I made it very clear before I left. I remember I said that we will never be involved again. Carter is still young. He will always miss his mother. Isn't it too cruel for you to leave without a word? I know you are angry about my relationship with Stella. But Arya, can we be more mature and think about it for the child? I will think of the past. I had quarreled with Blake because of Stella. Although I knew about Stella's existence not long after our marriage, I told him that when I got married to him at the beginning, I didn't know he had someone he liked. If I had known, I wouldn't be a third party. I think adults should be responsible for their actions. Since I chose to marry him, I shouldn't continue to be involved with the past. But what did he say? He said that there are many kinds of marriages. Those with love. Those who are together for interests without love. Those where one party loves the other. I asked him, what about us? What is our marriage? I remember he was silent for a long time. So long that I thought there would be no answer. He said he could play the role of a husband well and later he could also play the role of a father well. But that's all. I shouldn't expect him to love me. If I hadn't seen what love looks like, then maybe I could deceive myself that in this marriage, it would be fine if I played the role of a wife and a mother well. But I happened to see it. I saw how he loved Stella. On Valentine's Day, I hoped to spend it with him. I waited for him for a long time. In the end, he told me that he had social engagements with some old classmates and forgot. I know that Stella must be among the so-called old classmates. On our wedding anniversary, I prepared a candlelight dinner. In the end, he told me that he was working overtime with Stella at the company and forgot the time. On the anniversary of my father's death, I couldn't wait for him. Only after I called and asked did I know that he was in the hospital because Stella suddenly fainted. I was hysterical. Blake, don't you care about my feelings at all? Later, I still remember how he answered me. He said, Arya, are we really suitable? At that moment, I was completely heartbroken. I thought that as time passed, he would always accept me and see my efforts. But under countless times when I thought I was being enthusiastic on my own and his eternal coldness of never opening his heart, I finally understood. Love, like coughing, cannot be hidden. Nor can lack of love. Blake, once we divorce, there is no turning back. He was slightly stunned. This is also what you said yourself. I don't know if it was out of self-esteem or something. Blake took the child and left. The child cried heartbreakingly. I gritted my teeth and pretended not to hear. thinking of countless nights before when I held him to sleep. Even if he had a nightmare and whimpered at night, I was distressed. How could I bear to let him cry like this? Closing my eyes, I held Adiu and didn't look back at them again. I thought that life would return to calm again and Blake would not be entangled with her anymore. Until a week later, I received a call from Blake's family. It was Blake's mother. She was very kind to me and Blake's family. No matter what happened between me and Blake, I would respect her. I pressed the call button. Arya, can you come back and see Blake? He drank alcohol and is very drunk. Now he is suffering. He still has you in his heart and is reluctant to be separated from you. I was in a dilemma. It's all my fault for your affairs. If I hadn't forced him back then, you two wouldn't have ended up like this and I also delayed you. Just when I wanted to refuse, the voice on the other end of the phone changed again. I'm fine. I don't know why they called you. Sorry for disturbing you. Blake's voice was hoarse and tired after drinking and said, It's okay. The hangover medicine is in the second drawer of the bedside table in the bedroom. There is also a pill in a box. Take one with warm water in the morning. It is very effective in relieving a hangover. Okay, I know. Arya, thank you. After saying that, he didn't hang up the phone until I hung up first. Blake went to the room and found the hangover medicine and various medicines with labels in the drawer. Blake has a bad stomach. In his food, I always put some yam paste made by myself to help nourish his spleen and stomach. He has many social engagements and drinking is harmful to his health. So I always keep hangover medicine on hand. There is one thing he is very similar to Carter. He always doesn't like to tidy up his own things. I like to take care of all the trivial matters in his life in an orderly manner. Clothes, ties, cufflinks, wristwatches. At this moment, Blake was completely awake. In the bedroom and the cloakroom, everywhere was the trace of my care. Obviously he had a wife who cared and loved him so much, but he didn't know how to cherish it. In the dim bedroom with moonlight, at this moment, Blake felt even more lonely and cold. He regretted it. He didn't want a divorce. The first time I was truly angry with Blake was when I knew that he had gone back on his word during the divorce cooling off period and didn't want to divorce me. What's even more hateful is that he brought Carter with him and broke into my current life. Mom. When I got off work, I saw Carter running towards me with his school bag on his back. Dad and I have moved here. From now on, we can be together again. Mom, can I sleep with you at night? I held back my anger and wanted to question Blake about the divorce, but he didn't take it seriously. Carter has been pestering me to come. I really can't do anything about him. Last time I came and asked. The house next door to me is empty. I bought it. Don't worry, we won't disturb you. I didn't hug Carter and didn't answer him. I just looked at Blake coldly. You are disturbing me now. It's the child who misses you, Arya. The child is so young. After all, he needs a mother. You can't be so cruel to him. Why don't you agree to divorce? Blake was choked by my question and was a little embarrassed for a while. Arya, we have a common child. I also don't have any principled problems. So are you forcing me to sue? Blake, in half a year, at most a year, the court can grant a divorce. Seeing my firm attitude, Blake was very puzzled. Why do you have to divorce? As the young mistress of Blake's family, you can eat well and use well. I don't even want you to show your face and go out to work. You can do whatever you want. Isn't this good? No. I was resolute. Why? I want to be myself. Arya, don't want to revolve around you, Blake, for the rest of my life. I looked coldly at the man standing opposite me with a firm attitude. Just at this moment, Adiu heard the sound and ran out, wagging its fluffy little short tail and circling around my feet. I squatted down and picked it up and left resolutely. Before I entered the door, I vaguely heard Carter say pitifully, Dad, I seem to be a little envious of that annoying little stupid dog. At least it has a mother who loves it. Since Blake didn't leave, I chose to leave Liangzhou. There is a medical assistance project in Xinjiang. I resolutely signed up for it. Before leaving, I went to Jiangcheng and gave Adiu to Dylan to take care of for a while. The conditions in northern Xinjiang are very poor. And there are still aftershocks now. The rescue work is arduous. It's really too dangerous for a girl like you to go there. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Besides, so many people have gone to help. Why can't I? Dylan was also originally signed up to participate. But his mother has been bedridden all year round and needs someone to take care of her. The hospital didn't approve it. Then you must be careful. Call me from time to time and let me know that you are safe. I know. I still miss my ADO, but before I left Jiangcheng, I didn't expect Stella to find me. To be exact, she followed me. When I was crossing the road, she wanted to run me over with her car again. The wheel of fate seemed to return to the time before my rebirth. On an unmanned street corner, when I saw Stella's Porsche speeding towards me with full power, my mind went blank. The body that was run over in my previous life seemed to still have memories, and it hurt so much that my flesh twitched. I don't want this fate to shroud me again. When she glared at me and was about to step on the accelerator, I desperately rushed towards her. I stood in front of her car and looked at her steadily. Stella, are you going to run me over? If so, then come on. Stella remained unmoved and stepped on the accelerator and rushed towards me. I was apprehensive but forced myself to open my eyes. I was picked up on the hood of her car. The car sped like this for dozens of meters. Along the way, I kept staring at Stella. Do you think that if you run me over and kill me, no one will know? Then you can be with Blake? She didn't seem to want to listen to my nonsense. She stepped on the accelerator and cried angrily all the way, as if she wanted to perish with me. There are 2 stone piers 50 meters away. If she doesn't stop, both me and her car will crash into them. The car will be destroyed and people will die. If I die, you can't escape legal sanctions. You and Blake will never be possible. For a man, you don't hesitate to commit a crime. Is it really worth it? I was terrified but didn't want to admit defeat. Just when I thought I was going to die again under her wheels, a harsh braking sound resounded through the quiet street corner. The car stopped suddenly, and I fell down and rolled to the side. Stella staggered out of the car, looking at me, her eyes bloodshot. All because of you, twice. Because of you, Blake humiliated me twice. 7 years ago, Blake's family asked me to leave Jiangcheng. 7 years later, Blake asked me to leave again. I am also a woman who loves him. What's wrong with me? She was hysterical. I could see it and somehow felt sorry for this woman. She may really love Blake, and Blake must have loved her too. But now, he definitely doesn't love her anymore. I staggered and endured the pain and walked to her side. I held her hand and tried to make her relax. He doesn't love you anymore. Stella was stunned and looked at me with a hateful look. Is it worth degrading yourself for a man who doesn't love you? The world is so big. With beautiful mountains and waters, what isn't better than him? You are still so young. Fortunately, you haven't wasted your whole life on him, right? After I said so much, tears gradually gathered in Stella's eyes. He has changed his mind and fallen in love with you. So are you saying these things in front of me to mock me? I smiled. Probably he doesn't love me either. But whether he loves me or not is not important, because I don't care anymore. I don't need his love either. I let go of her and turned to look at the sky, because love needs to be cherished well. I believe that the person who cherishes me will definitely come. But before that, I suddenly turned to look at Stella. You have to love yourself well first. I embarked on the journey to assist Xinjiang. The earthquake situation is very serious. I watched the lives buried in the ruins pass away with my own eyes and couldn't help sighing. Is there anything more important in this world than being alive? When we are overly concerned about those petty loves, there are more people who are silently devoting themselves. A little girl ran over and grabbed my white coat and asked me to save her mother. I looked at her hand. There was blood in her fingernails. She naively tried to dig up the ruins that buried her mother. The aftershock crisis has not been lifted yet. The leaders of the hospital who came together and the comrades in charge of the local command did not agree to take risks. Doctor, please save my mother. She is pregnant and will give birth to a little brother soon. I thought of Carter. He never really cared about me as his mother. But this little girl, in order to save her mother, has blood on her hands. I'll go with you. I carried the rescue bag on my back and followed her to save people. My colleagues who came along followed me without hesitation. Everyone be careful. We split up. We went down into the hole in the ruins through a very small opening. The light below was limited. We shouted and groped all the way with flashlights. After about 10 minutes, we finally heard a faint sound. It was the sound of stones hitting steel bars. Dung, dung, dung. Over there. I finally found the woman in the ruins. She was facing up, arching her whole body hard and protecting her stomach with her back. When I shined the flashlight over, I found a dark patch on the ruins. When I looked closer, I realized it was amniotic fluid. Her water has broken. We have to hurry. Another experienced obstetrician felt the pregnant woman's belly and found that her fetus was in an abnormal position. Therefore, there were no conditions for her to give birth naturally. But here, we don't have the conditions to achieve the degree of anesthesia in the delivery room. Doctor, please save the child. The woman's weak voice insisted on saving the child. At that moment, I truly realized the greatness of a mother. It doesn't matter if we do a cesarean section directly. I'm not afraid of pain. Some of the doctors who came were a bit evasive. In such a situation, even if anesthesia is administered, this woman will faint from the pain. But time is passing by every minute. If the child doesn't come out soon, there may be hypoxia in the uterus. I'll do it. I opened my backpack and took out the tools. Noah, administer anesthesia. I'll do the cesarean section. Turning my head, I looked at the pregnant woman again. It will be very painful, but please trust me. The woman smiled. Tears slipped from the corners of her eyes. In silence, her eyes conveyed trust in me. Giving birth is already very painful. If there is no pain relief during natural childbirth, the labor pain can also take half a life. I admire this mother for not making a sound when I made the incision. Noah is an expert in the anesthesia department of our hospital. He used a dose that could reduce her pain as much as possible while ensuring the safety of the child. I didn't let her down either. I quickly and accurately cut open her layers of belly. Until she couldn't bear the pain and widened her eyes and fainted. Just at this moment, an aftershock suddenly came, and everyone was terrified. Don't panic. The operation can't stop. The accompanying rescue personnel professionally set up supports and tried to stabilize the structure here, although we may be buried together at any time. At this moment, what each of us is thinking is probably to hold the scalpel and ask our hearts and jointly build a life defense line. Finally, when the bloody child was taken out and cried loudly, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. It's really a boy. The little girl has a little brother. After going through many difficulties and obstacles, we finally rescued the parturient and the child, and a group of people also successfully came out of the ruins. The little girl waited outside for a very long time. So long that several times she was afraid that we wouldn't be able to come out and her mother and younger brother would also leave her. When she saw us come out smoothly, she cried and laughed at the same time. Incoherently, she threw herself into my arms and then by her mother's side. After the aftershock, northern Xinjiang was temporarily stable for a while. Some of the large troops took a rest and some helped treat the wounded. And I ran to an empty and deserted place alone and burst into uncontrollable crying facing the Grand Canyon. All the past between me and Carter flashed in my mind. I don't know if I was crying because I didn't know why things between me and Carter had become like this now, or if I was sighing with emotion about the magnificence of life. For a moment, I wanted to call and listen to Carter's voice. But I still held back. I was afraid that I would be soft-hearted. That is my son, the child I gave birth to after a day and a night of labor pain and then a cesarean section. How could I really cut off our relationship? When the rescue work was nearing its end, I and the large troops were also preparing to return to Liangzhou on a chosen day. On the night before leaving, an off-road vehicle came to the camp, followed by several large trucks carrying supplies. The people who got out of the car were Blake and Carter. Carter was holding my dog in his hand. His small body was a bit unsteady when walking on this ruin, but it could be seen that he was trying to overcome it. Why did they come? Mom, I brought your Adieu to see you. You saved so many people. Mom, you are so amazing. Mom, why didn't I find out before that you are so amazing? You can also treat and save people? There was admiration for me in Carter's eyes, as well as timidity and caution for fear that I would reject him and give him the cold shoulder. I first took Adieu, who was wriggling in his hand. I haven't been away for long. I don't know when they picked up Adieu from Dylan. Unexpectedly, in just 10 days or so, Adieu has gotten along well with Carter. Carter was very looking forward to me hugging him too, but I didn't. I still haven't figured out how I should continue to get along with my son and in what mode. He was a bit disappointed. In the end, I still reached out a bit stiffly and touched his head. Carter's face immediately lit up with a smile. He continued to follow me like a little tail, asking questions and making conversation when there was none. I suddenly found that the boy who used to dislike me everywhere actually had so much to say to me. Blake and Carter stayed in the camp for one night. The locals were very grateful for the life-saving supplies he brought. At night, when everyone was resting, I couldn't sleep and came out for a walk. Adia followed behind me. When I sat down, he curled up and lay down beside me. Blake came out at some point. He was holding 2 cans of beer in his hand. When he came, I got up and left. After leaving him, my heart to not be with him became stronger and stronger. I didn't want to breathe the same air as him. Arya. Mr. Blake, it's better for you to call me by my full name. Arya, please don't be like this. I beg you. It was my fault before. I didn't know how to cherish you when I was in bliss. But now I understand who is the most important to me. Can you give me another chance to start over and let us start over, okay? I took a step back and looked at her coldly. There was no ripple in my eyes. Blake, there is no way for us to start over. I also hope that you can agree to divorce. This is good for everyone. But I love you. I can't live without you, Arya. He said he loves me? I seemed to hear a big joke. When I was with him, he loved Stella. After I separated from him, he said he loved me. In my heart, love has always been noble and luxurious. I was once so humble in order to get Blake's love that I was as humble as dust. But today I just realized that his love is so cheap. Before, you also loved Stella and couldn't live without her. But now, you drive her away from you again. Blake was slightly stunned. Did she look for you? She didn't do anything to you, did she? What can she do to me? Even if she hates me, the damage I caused to her is less than 1/10,000th of the damage you caused to her. Arya. Blake looked remorseful. At that moment, I believed that he wanted to continue with me. But I don't care anymore. Blake, let's just leave it like this. At least, don't make these few years I spent on you become cheap and unbearable. After saying that, I didn't look at him again. Picking up Adieu, I resolutely disappeared from his sight. Before dawn the next day, I left northern Xinjiang with the first batch of medical teams returning to the city. I didn't say goodbye to Blake or even Carter. I just left a letter for Carter. I told him that Carter, be a brave boy. Be a boy who loves to smile. Be a boy with love. Because Mom used to love you so much. After returning to Liangzhou, work suddenly became busy, and I didn't have the mind to pay attention to anything about the two of them. Since I went out with the medical team for rescue operations last time, I have been particularly active in such actions. Later, I went to Sichuan and Chongqing, seaside. Even some backward areas abroad that need first aid. The more people I help and the more I see life and death, the more I cherish my current life. Even if sometimes the conditions are difficult and the environment is dangerous, I never back down. Once, there was a plague in western Yunnan. I went there with many colleagues from the hospital to provide support. Accidentally, I also got infected with the virus and was in critical condition. Suddenly, I received a WeChat message from Stella. She got married to a man who has always liked her but whom she had never cared about before. Like me, she chased after Blake for most of her youth. In the end, she realized that love is not necessarily magnificent. Sometimes, plainness is true happiness. Finally, she sent me 8 words. Arya, I'm sorry, and also, thank you. Just when I thought I was really going to file a divorce lawsuit, my lawyer finally brought me good news. After dragging me for 3 months, Blake finally agreed to divorce. However, only the custody of Carter in the original divorce agreement was changed. Blake's sole custody of Carter was changed to joint custody by both parties. Everything else remained unchanged. The property of Blake's family that I insisted on not taking, he redistributed a considerable part to me again. At dusk in early summer, I was walking ADU downstairs. I received a call from Blake. I didn't want to answer it at first, but in the end I didn't go too far. After all, he made concessions on the divorce. I answered the phone, but his voice rang out not far away. Turning around, he was right behind me. It had only been 3 months since we last parted. At this moment, Blake no longer had his former elegance. His face was dull, his figure was a bit thinner, and there was no longer the former radiance on his face. Blake has always been very particular about his image, but now he has stubble. You shouldn't come to find me again. Arya, I know that whatever I say now is useless, but I really just want to see you again. That's all. Don't worry, I won't disturb your life again in the future. I will leave Liangzhou, leave Jiangqing, and go far away. Before I leave, I just want to obtain your forgiveness. Forgive me for my indifference and disregard for you over the years. Is it okay? Blake came over, approached me, and reached out. He wanted to hug me. But I refused. I can't deceive myself and don't want to be hypocritically forgiving and magnanimous. Of course, I don't have any hatred in my heart now. But I can't forgive. Some things, just because you say you are wrong, I don't have to forgive you. Blake, not forgiving is my last kindness to you. If I don't forgive, then in your life, I am not like a wild goose passing without leaving a trace. Blake left and went far away to a foreign country. He no longer took care of the family business of Blake's family. Later, I heard that he seemed to have completely changed. There was no fighting spirit or vitality at all. Blake's parents also gave up persuading him and instead began to train the still young Carter. Carter also seemed to have completely changed. Blake's mother would occasionally share some growth moments of Carter with me. He is very brave. He loves to smile especially. He has really become a loving person. Although I still pay no attention to his growth, but starting from that time after we separated, I will receive Carter's blessings on my birthday. Sometimes it is a message forwarded to me by Grandma. Sometimes it is a postcard sent to the hospital in Liangzhou. Although only a few words. Gradually, no matter how indifferent I look on my face, a smile will gradually rise in my heart. My boy died at the moment when he pulled out my oxygen mask. But at the time when he came to northern Xinjiang holding ADU, he was reborn. And I still go my own way. Holding a scalpel, treating and saving people. Carrying a rescue bag, traversing rivers and mountains. Many things are only known after experiencing them. Gains and losses are not up to oneself. Just like feelings, only after experiencing pain can one know how to protect oneself. Why should the autumn wind be attached to the bright moon? Looking at the galaxy, one enters a dream. 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 One enters a dream.